Hello all and welcome to my AWS tutorial. Today we will discuss how to create a VPC with public and private subnets and a NAT gateway without using the VPC wizard. Before we jump into the demo and learn how to create the scenario to VPC, a couple of things to keep in mind. First is in this tutorial, I am using a NAT gateway. Okay, so before you provision a NAT gateway and start using for your tutorial, whenever you're implementing or following this tutorial on your own, I would certainly request you to review the pricing of the NAT gateway. So for this discussion, actually, I have opened that particular URL. This is the URL, as you see, and this is the pricing. So please ensure that you have seen the cost for NAT gateway per hour. For example, in US East North Virginia, it is $0.045 per hour. And for rest of the other regions, it is mentioned right here. So let's say if you're in Mumbai or Singapore or Frankfurt, you should ensure that you've checked out the price for NAT gateway. The price per hour is 0.056 for Mumbai and 0.059 for Singapore. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to also let you know is that in case you don't want to use a NAT gateway, you can also use a NAT instance instead. Okay, so for example, a lot of you guys might be using your free account and would probably have about 750 free hours or so for EC2 compute time. You can provision a T2 micro EC2 instance using one of the community AMIs for NAT instance. So let me show you how that is done. So let me quickly go to my AWS account. So this is my AWS account. And if you click on launch instance, go to community AMIs and then search for NAT instance, you will see a whole bunch of NAT instances are available. You can pretty much select whichever AMI you like. I would generally go for the first one and then provision it on a T2 micro instance and go ahead with the provisioning just like how you would provision a regular EC2 instance. Okay, so with that said, let's continue further ahead and review the architecture diagram for this scenario 2 VPC creation. Now, as the name itself says, we will be creating this VPC with a public and a private subnet. And finally, we will also be adding a NAT gateway to that. So let's review this architecture diagram. So let me grab my pen. So here it is. So this is I got my pen now. So let me get this thing lowered down. Here, so we have AWS. In AWS, in a specific region, you could select any region of your choice. We will be creating a VPC with the CIDR block 10.0.0.0/16. So this is the CIDR block of our VPC. In this VPC, we will be creating two subnets. The first subnet is going to be with a CIDR block of 10.0.0.0/24, as you see. And the second one is going to be with the CIDR block of 10.0.1.0.24. So these are our two subnets. After we have created our two subnets, we will go ahead and add internet gateway to our VPC. So basically you provision an internet gateway and you attach the internet gateway to your VPC. We will be looking at this while we create our VPC. After our internet gateway has been provisioned, we will associate our internet gateway to our to one of our subnets, the subnet that we want to be publicly available. So this is a public subnet, right? So we will have to go ahead and modify its route table and ensure that all the non-local traffic, this denotes the non-local traffic, the quadro 40 IP address. So as you see 0.0.0.0/0, which denotes the non-local traffic, is being directed out to our internet gateway right here. And that's what essentially makes this particular subnet a public subnet, because it has internet connectivity. After we have provisioned our internet gateway, one of the things that we will do is we will provision an EC2 instance over here. Okay, so we'll provision one EC2 instance and associate an elastic IP with it. So this will ensure that our EC2 instance is available publicly. Now, since we provisioned this EC2 instance in our public subnet, we should be able to connect to this EC2 instance using its elastic IP, using any SSH connectivity, because I'll be provisioning a Linux EC2 instance. So we will connect using PuTTY and the elastic IP address of this EC2 instance. So once we've connected to our EC2 instance, which is provisioned in our public subnet, we will basically try and ensure that the internet connectivity is present. So we'll try and install HTTPD, will enable HTTPD, and eventually also start HTTPD on a Linux EC2 instance. And once our HTTPD is started, we should be able to access the test page over the web for this particular EC2 instance. So finally, we are able, once we have provisioned our EC2 instance in a public subnet, the next thing we will do is we will provision an EC2 instance right here, another EC2 instance in our private subnet. Okay, and since this is private, we are not going to associate any elastic IP or anything of that sort. All that this is going to have is just a simple, straightforward private IP as per its subnet. This is our private subnet right here. After we have provisioned our EC2 instance in our private subnet, the next thing that we will do is we will provision a NAT gateway. That is this guy. Okay, and as I showed you earlier, if you don't want to provision a NAT gateway, you can also provision a NAT instance. Now, after we've provisioned a NAT gateway, we will associate an elastic IP to it and ensure that you provision this NAT gateway or your NAT instance in your public subnet and associate an elastic IP address. It's important to associate an elastic IP address with a NAT gateway so that it is available for any external internet connectivity. Now, NAT actually stands for Network Address Translation. So essentially, any server that is present in your private subnet and does not have direct internet connectivity can access internet via your NAT gateway. So this EC2 instance that we have provisioned in our private subnet, this guy right here, will be able to connect to internet via our NAT gateway. Okay, so in order to test that, we need to do a couple of things. First is that we need to modify the route table and ensure that any non-local traffic, and again the Quadro 0 IP address. Okay, so this is the Quadro 0 IP address. In this case, needs to be directed to NAT gateway. So any non-local traffic will be directed to a NAT gateway. And then we will, once we've modified the route table associated with our private subnet, we will try and install some updates, maybe install HTTPD or Docker on our private EC2 instance. And it should be able to do that because it should be able to connect to internet via our NAT gateway. Another thing that you want to keep in mind after you've provisioned your NAT gateway is that you need to ensure that you've disabled any source and target checks on this instance, or basically your NAT gateway, whatever you're using. And that is because this is basically used only for any kind of to and fro traffic. There's nothing happening on that particular NAT gateway or that NAT instance that you have provisioned. Okay, so I think we have reviewed the diagram overall pretty well. So the next thing is to go ahead and let me first go ahead and delete all my drawings. Okay, and shift back to my mouse pointer. Okay, so what I have done is actually I have gone ahead and enlisted all the steps that we will be following in this particular tutorial. So feel free to pause the video right here, okay, and follow through these steps. So this is the first set of steps wherein we are creating the VPC, the two subnets. As you see, we're directing our non-local traffic to internet gateway, etc., and finally connecting to our EC2 instance once it's provisioned, and checking internet connectivity as we had discussed by installing HTTPD, enabling and starting HTTPD, and finally testing our test page. And in the next set of steps that I have here is basically provisioning the EC2 instance in a private subnet, adding NAT gateway, requesting elastic IP for a NAT gateway. And then finally, one of the things that we will do is this step. We will basically SSH from our public EC2 instance to our private EC2 instance. Now, if you don't know how to SSH from one Linux EC2 instance to another, please refer to my video, how to SSH from one Linux EC2 instance to another. I will have the URL posted in the description of this video. Okay, and once we have successfully SSH'd from our from our public EC2 instance to our private EC2 instance, we will go ahead and install HTTP and Docker. But the most important thing for this particular tutorial is that you release and delete all resources, especially the NAT gateway and the elastic IPs. As you saw, NAT gateway has a considerable amount of price. So if you have just left it around for even of a couple of hours, you could actually, gather a substantial amount of costs. The cost buildup will be very fast. Also, just don't go ahead and terminate your EC2 instances, especially the ones that are provisioned in your public subnet. For example, if you provision a NAT instance or the Linux EC2 instance, ensure that you release the elastic IPs first and then terminate your EC2 instance, because any elastic IP that is not associated or is not used basically is going to be charged for. So ensure that you just don't terminate your EC2 instance, but you actually disassociate your elastic IP, release your elastic IP, and then go ahead and terminate your EC2 instances. Okay, so with that, let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our little drawing here. So first thing that we need to do is go ahead and provision our VPC, that is with the CIDR block 10.1.0.0/16. So let me go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go back to my AWS account. So this is my AWS account. Okay, and I'm going to go to VPC and click on your VPCs and click on create VPC. So I'm going to go ahead and say my VPC and give it a CIDR block of 10.0.0.0/16. Default tenancy is going to be default. I don't want IPv6. I'm going to go ahead and click on yes, create. So as you see, our VPC has been created. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and create our two subnets. So as you see, the first subnet is 10.0.024 and 10.0.1.0/24. So we'll go ahead and create these two subnets. So click on subnets, click on create subnet, and say my VPC public subnet, and I'm going to give select VPC, my VPC availability zone. I'm going to use US East 1A, and I'm going to give the CIDR block as 10.0.0.0/16. Okay, and click on create. So our subnet should have been created. Now let's go ahead and create a private subnet. So we're going to give it the name as my VPC private subnet. I'm going to go ahead and select my VPC. I'm going to put it in 1B. I'm going to give it a CIDR block of 1.0.1, sorry, 10.0.1.0/16, and click on create. /24, my bad. It should be subnet should be /24. That's why it was giving me an error. So it is 10.0.1.0/24. Okay. Cancel this. Let me check what was my CIDR block for this. Okay. So by mistake I created this. So I need to delete this. Let me go ahead and delete my public subnet. Okay, so we'll have to go ahead and create the subnets again. So sorry about that. So my VPC public subnet. Okay, and CIDR block should be 10.0.0.0/24. So click on create. Okay. And this is our subnet right here. And now let's create another subnet. My VPC, and this is going to be a private subnet. Let me go and select my VPC. Availability is 1B, and the CIDR block is 10.0.1.0/24. And this is a private subnet. So let's go and click on create. Okay, so as you see, I'm going to put in my VPC right here. And these are two subnets that we have here. So I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. So we have a public subnet and we have a private subnet. So this is our CIDR block for private, and this is our CIDR block for public. So what we have done so far is we've created a VPC. Okay, let me grab my pen. So, okay, so we've created our VPC, we've created our public subnet, and we have created our private subnet. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and provision our internet gateway. Okay, so let me clear all drawings. So let's go ahead and provision our internet gateway. So let's click on internet gateways and click on internet, create internet gateway, say my VPC IGW, and click on create. And then finally click on actions, attach to VPC, and we will select my VPC right here and click on attach. Okay, so we have now provisioned our internet gateway. So the next step for us would be to go ahead and provision an EC2 instance in our public subnet and associate an elastic IP. But before we do that, we need to ensure that we change the route table associated with our public subnet and ensure that internet gateway connectivity has been established. Okay, so let's first go ahead and see if we have what route tables we have. So by default, we have one route table over here, as you see, and there are no subnets associated to that. So let us first associate one subnet to this. So click on routes. So I click on subnet associations, click on edit, and then click on public subnet and click on save. So now our public subnet has been associated with this route table. So let's give it some names. So my public subnet route table. Okay, so this is a route table associated with it. So I'm going to give my VPC public subnet route table. And so we've associated our public subnet to this. Now this is a subnet that we need to modify the routes for. So we'll go ahead and now modify the route for this particular route table and have our non-local traffic directed to our internet gateway. So we go ahead and click on add another route, and we'll put the quadro 0 IP address /0 right here, and we'll associate that with our internet gateway. As you see, our internet gateway is showing up right here. So you go and select our internet gateway and click on save. Okay, so our internet gateway is now associated to the route table that is associated with our public subnet. So that essentially means this route table, the one that, let me circle that for you. We just modified this route table. So we got this route in place for internet gateway, okay? And we got this route in place for our public subnet. So we have two, one local and one for our internet gateway. As you see, it's right here, these two. Okay, fine. So the next thing is to go ahead and provision an EC2 instance and associate an elastic IP in a public subnet. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to EC2, launch an instance. I'm going to launch free tier. I'm going to launch an Linux EC2 instance. I'm going to say select configure instance details. I'm only going to launch one instance. I'm going to launch it in my VPC, and I'm going to launch this in my public subnet, and I'm going to associate a public IP to it, and rest of the other properties I'm going to keep as default. So next is to add storage. So I'm going to keep this general purpose. Any tags if you want, so you can probably give name my VPC public EC2. Okay, security group. I'm going to create a new security group, so it's going to be my VPC EC2, and I'll go ahead and enable only port 22 on this. So let me just give SG instead of EC2. So that just helps in ensuring that this is a security group right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on review and launch. And we have everything in place. So let's go ahead and click on launch. I'm going to use the AWS key pair that I have within this region for this EC2 instance, and then go ahead and launch instances. So as you see, instance has been launched and is currently being provisioned. Now, as you see, our instance has a public IP address and a private IP address. Okay, so it's currently in a pending state, and in a few minutes, you should be able to see that it is up and running. So yeah, there it is. It is running now. So the next thing that we will do is we will go ahead and provision an elastic IP address and have that IP address associated with our EC2 instance. So let's go ahead and create an elastic IP. So we'll go ahead and click on allocate new address. So the scope is VPC. We'll go ahead and click on allocate. And this is the elastic IP that has been allocated to us. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is we need to associate this address with an EC2 instance. So click on associate and in resource type have instance, and then go ahead and select our EC2 instance that is running in our public subnet. So let's select this EC2 instance. Okay. And then finally click on associate. So our address was associated successfully. Click on close. And now if we go back to our EC2 and look at our EC2 instance right here, the one that we provisioned, you will see that our IP address has been associated. So the next thing that we should do is we should go ahead and try and SSH to this EC2 instance and try to check its internet connectivity. So let's go ahead and copy our IP address, and we are going to use PuTTY to SSH into this EC2 instance. So let's go ahead and double click on putty.exe. Copy our IP address here. I am going to increase the font size a little bit so that you can see it distinctly. And then finally, we will select our private key. So I'm going to go ahead and select my private key and click on open. So as you see, our EC2 instance is up and running. Click on yes for connection. I'm going to use the default user, EC2-user, and hit enter. And there you are, connected to your EC2 instance in your public subnet. Now let's go ahead and switch to the root user, okay, and try and install HTTPD. Okay, hit enter after typing yum install HTTPD. And as you see, we do have internet connectivity with this instance because we had associated internet gateway to our subnet and eventually made it a public subnet. So click on yes and continue with the installation. After we have installed HTTPD, the next thing we are going to do is we are going to enable HTTPD. So the command for that is sudo systemctl enable HTTPD and hit enter. As you see now, HTTPD has been enabled. The next thing that we will do is we will start HTTPD. So again, the command for that is sudo systemctl start HTTPD and hit enter. So as you see, our HTTPD service has been started on this EC2 instance. So let's go ahead and check our test page. So let's go on Chrome and copy our public elastic IP address right here and hit enter. And the test page should show up. Yep, it's saying it's taking too long. I hope I have the right address, which I believe I do. Okay, let's try again. Sometimes this happens. It takes a while for it to launch. Let me see if both my checks are done. So yes, my HTTPD is being enabled. Okay, so I think I figured out why I'm not able to connect to my EC2 instance. So if you remember, when we provision this EC2 instance in our security group, right here, we had only enabled port 22. So the next thing that we need to do is go ahead and add root, add HTTP 80, and click on save. And now if you go back to this and hit enter, and there it is, your test page showed up. So we are able to now look at our test page running on our public EC2 instance. Okay, so what we have done so far, guys, is we have basically completed until here. So we've provisioned this web server and associated an elastic IP address. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to provision this EC2 server, and this is in our private subnet, and it does not have any elastic IP. It only has a private IP address. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. So this is our EC2 dashboard, and we'll go ahead and click on launch instance. Again, free tier, select Linux, T2 micro, and we will launch this in our my VPC, and this time we will launch it in our private subnet, and we will not have any public IP associated with this EC2 instance. Click on add storage, add tags, add security group. Okay, we will create a new security group, my VPC SG private, and we will only enable port 22. Now, if you want, you can leave this open, or you could customize it with any specific security groups if you want that only is any specific security group within your VPC. For example, we had my VPC SG, which is the security group associated with our public subnet to have access and to able to SSH to this EC2 instance in our private subnet. We can go ahead and limit that. So for this demo, I'm going to go ahead and limit that, limit access only to our security group in our public subnet. So any EC2 instance that is launched in our public subnet and is associated with this particular security group will be able to SSH to this particular EC2 instance launched in our private subnet. So let's go ahead and click on review and launch. And this is our summary. And then finally, let's go ahead and click on launch. And I'm going to use the same key pair. So I'm going to check yes, and then finally click on launch instances. So as you see, our instance has been provisioned and is still currently in a pending state. As you see, we had only requested for a private IP. There is no public IP address associated with this particular EC2 instance, and our instance is still coming up right now. Okay, so let's go switch back to our diagram. So what we have done so far is we've provisioned this EC2 instance. We've also provisioned an EC2 instance in our private subnet. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and provision NAT gateway, that is this part, and associate an elastic IP address to it. And then finally change the private route table, okay, the route table that's associated to a private subnet, and add a route to that, to a NAT gateway, essentially. So let's go ahead and provision a NAT instance or NAT gateway, whatever you choose. So let me go back to my VPC. And as you see, you can see NAT gateways right there. So click on NAT gateways and create NAT gateway. And we will provision. So you provision the NAT gateway in your public subnet, but you will modify the route table that is associated with your private subnet. So keep that in mind. So you provision this in your public subnet, and we need to ensure that the subnet that we are selecting is our public subnet. So hopefully I've selected the right one. Let me first go ahead and check which is my public subnet. So my public subnet is the one that ends with 72C72E. So I believe that should be this one. This is my public subnet. And then we are going to allocate an elastic IP. So I'm going to click on create new elastic IP. This is our new elastic IP that's been associated. And then click on create a NAT gateway. And your NAT gateway has been provisioned. Now, as you see, it's telling you, in order to use NAT gateway, ensure that you edit your route tables. And that's exactly what we are going to do. So we are going to click on edit route tables and then go into our route tables. Now, as you see, we had one route table that was associated with our public subnet. Hence, what we need to do is we need to create another route table that we are going to associate with our private subnet. So let's click on route table and we are going to give it a name on the similar line. So it's going to be my VPC hyphen private subnet route table. I'm going to associate it with my VPC and click on yes, create. And our route table should be created. Now, the first thing that we will do is go ahead and do a subnet association. And we will click on edit and we will select our private subnet and click on save. Okay, so we have associated a private subnet to this particular route table. Now we'll go ahead and edit routes. And then as you see, it has the local route right here. And then we will add another one. So basically what we will do is 0, and we will add our NAT gateway to this and click on save. Okay, so let's switch back. And as you see, this is the route table that we just created. Okay, this route table. So as you see, our NAT gateway is there and our local routes are also there. Okay, so we have both of these right here. Okay, so finally we have provisioned our NAT gateway. We've associated elastic IP. We have our EC2 instance, and we've also modified our route table. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to check if we are able to access internet from our private EC2 instance. That's basically ensuring that the NAT gateway connectivity is truly available. So first thing what we will do is we will basically try an SSH to our private instance, private EC2 instance from our public EC2 instance. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and click hit clear and then clear scroll back right there. So this is basically our public EC2 instance. And from here, we will go ahead and SSH into our private EC2 instance. Now, in order for us to do that, the first thing that we need to do is we need to have the key pair created on this particular public EC2 instance. So let's go ahead and create a key pair. So it's going to be vim and then AWS key pair. and hit enter. And finally, after the editor comes up, hit on insert. Now what you want to do is you want to go to your AWS key pair, open this in Notepad, just like how I have, copy everything. So Control A, Control C, come back to your SSH connectivity and hit right click. And as you see, everything has been copied. Now hit escape and key in colon WQ, small WQ as you see right there, and hit enter. Now this key pair has been saved on our public EC2 instance. Now from this EC2 instance, we will SSH into our private EC2 instance. Now in order for us to do that, we need the IP address of our private EC2 instance. So let's go ahead and get the IP address of our private EC2 instance. So let's go ahead and click on EC2. And we should be able to see our instances right here. Okay. And this is our private EC2. As you see, it only has the private IP address. I'm going to go ahead and click on copy to clipboard. Go back here and type in SSH -I. Give the name of your key pair file. In my case, as you see, it is AWS key pair. Then type in EC2-user at and copy this IP address right there and hit enter. So it's asking whether you want to continue connecting, and I'm going to say yes. Now, as you see, I got an error over here. I got an error, permission denied, and that is because of the read-write access on this particular key pair file that I just created. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and modify the read-write access on that. So let's go ahead and have the right command for that. So type in chmod and then type in 600 AWS key pair and hit enter. Now go ahead and execute the same command again and hit enter. And there you are, connected to your private EC2 instance. So let me go ahead and clear this. Now we are connected to our private EC2 instance. So we want to check if we are truly able to connect to internet and a NAT gateway is truly functioning. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to log in as a root user. And now we will try and install, let's say, HTTPD. So yum install HTTPD and hit enter. Now, if the NAT gateway connectivity is working fine and our route tables and everything are associated and have the right routes, this installation should continue. So let's hit enter and check. So as you see, it's continuing and it's asking me if I want to proceed. So I'm going to click on yes. And as you see, our HTTPD installation was successful. So that essentially means that we do have NAT gateway connectivity and internet connectivity on our private EC2 instance. So let's try and install something else. So we'll try and install yum install. I'm going to go ahead and install Docker on this. So hit enter. So, and as you see, Docker installation has begun, and Docker is currently being installed right now. And there you go. Our Docker installation has completed. So finally, if we have to go back to our diagram, we were able to connect to internet using our EC2 instance via NAT gateway. And finally, we have implemented this entire VPC diagram successfully. So that's it from me, guys. Again, just to reiterate the message, Please ensure that you have released and deleted all your resources, especially your NAT gateway and your elastic IPs. So let me actually go ahead and do that. So I'm basically going to terminate my connectivity to my private EC2 first. And there you go. I'm out of my private EC2, back to my public EC2, and then finally out of my public EC2. The first thing that we will do is we will go ahead and delete our NAT gateway. So let's do that. So NAT gateways, select your NAT gateway, click on action, delete NAT gateway, delete NAT gateway. It's done, it's gone. Ensure that the elastic IP associated with your NAT gateway is also released. Okay, it will eventually release. I think it's in the process of releasing it. Okay, we'll come back to that. The next thing is we need to go ahead and release our elastic IPs for our EC2 instance. So this is our EC2 instance. So I'm going to go ahead and disassociate the address. So the address has been disassociated. Now go ahead and release the address and click on release. And as you see, now it is allowing me to release the address that was associated with my NAT gateway as well. So I'm going to go ahead and release that address. So I've released my elastic IPs and my NAT gateway has been deleted as well. I'm going to go now to my EC2 dashboard and terminate both my instances. So let's go ahead and click on terminate and click on yes. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and delete my VPC. So select your VPC, delete VPC. I think the instances are still going on, still running. So it is going to take a while. I hope my NAT gateway got deleted. Yes, it did. So that's good. And my elastic IPs have been released. Okay, now let's try and delete our VPC again. So click on delete VPC. Okay, still now. And let's see if our instances have been terminated. Yes, they're still in the process of shutting down. So once these instances are shut down and terminated, then it will allow me to terminate my, delete my VPC. So as I showed you, go into your VPCs, select your VPC, click on actions, delete VPC, and have it deleted. It's taking us a while, but you know how to go ahead and delete your VPC. So please ensure, guys, that you delete all your resources. So that's it from me, guys. Please feel free to leave your comments at the bottom. If you want me to create videos on any specific topic, do let me know and I'll certainly have them created. If not, then I will see you in some other video shortly. Take care. Bye-bye.